All right. So we are in the middle of this mimer for Shavuos. I don't think we're going to finish it before Shavuos, sad truth, but whatever. Very briefly synopsizing, the mimer began based on the pasuk from Shir Hashirim, Tzena Uri'ena Bnos Tzion, go out and see daughters of Zion, B'melech Shlomo, with the king Shlomo, which is a mashal. It represents Hashem himself. B'atarash Itralo Imo, with the crown that his mother crowned him. The Midrash says that Rishon Bar Yochai asked and received an explanation on this, that Hashem loves Klal Yisrael so much, he loves us so much, he calls us his daughter. And then he loves us even more, he calls us his sister. And then he loves us even more, he calls us his mother. Rishon Bar Yochai was so excited, he kissed the person that told him. And a kiss means like, I can't even put into words how excited I am. So we said, why? Why was he so excited? He couldn't even put into words his excitement. That was a very brief rendition of the first half of the first ayah. In the second half, we discuss who's crowning who. Because this pasuk of Shir Hashirim, Batarash Itralo Imo, the crown that his mother crowned him, means we, Klal Yisrael, the mother, are crowning Hashem. But we all know the famous midrash that says that when the Jews said Nasa v'nishma, the malachim came down, 600,000 malachim, giving each Jew, each malach gave a Jew 2 crowns, crown for Nasa, crown for Nishma. So it sounds like, of course, malachim are God's agent. So it sounds like Hashem is crowning us. But the pasuk, Batarash Itralo Imo, means we're crowning Hashem. So who's crowning who? So there's a midrash that explains this concept of the 2 crowns that the malachim crowned us based on a pasuk, and says that there's a country, and the people of the country give the king 3 crowns. Well, what's he going to do with 3 crowns? He takes one and places on his head, and he takes the other two and puts them on the head of his sons. So when the malachim say Kadosh, 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 they are 3 Kadoshes. They are crowning Hashem threefold. 1 crown Hashem keeps, and the other 2 he gives to us. And we know it's the malachim that are giving Hashem these crowns, because the storyline, right, of the midrash said the people of that country. And here we're talking about before Matan Torah. So before Matan Torah, it was up and down was down, and the 2 did not meet. So Hashem's country, so to speak, was supernal realms, up, spirituality, heavens. So the malachim are the people of his country, so to speak, and they are giving Hashem the 3 crowns, Kadosh, 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 and Hashem graciously gives us 2 of them when we said Nasa and Ishma. But we're still stuck. It's all very nice, but the pasuk says, Batarash Itralo Imo, with the crown that his mother, Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, crowned him. So the Rebbe explains, based on another concept in the Gemara, that it says that the malachim can only sing Shira when we sing Shira, which means when the malachim are doing something, they're doing something under our jurisdiction, from our impetus. So really, the Jews sing Shira, and that allows and empowers the malachim to sing Shira. So really, the Jews create for Hashem the crowns, and this allows the malachim with their Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh to like transfer and give the crowns to Hashem. So obviously, both are true. But Tarash Itralo Imo is really our crowns. We are singing Shira. We are creating the crowns. But then these crowns, through the intermediary of the malachim, given to Hashem from his Bnei Medina, his country people, the malachim, who then says, oh, you're giving me these crowns? Here, take 2 and give it to my children. So we crown Hashem, and Hashem crowns. Then the Rebbe said, we have 2 midrashim, both very famous. We know them. But if you think about them, it's a little surprising. The first midrash is this famous midrash. These are both midrashim that have to do with Shavuos and Matan Torah. Of course, that's what this midrash is about. The first midrash is that when Moshe went up to Shemaim to get the Torah, the Malachim said, what's a human being doing here? Huh? What are you doing in heaven? You're human. Go down. Well, he's here to get the Torah. What? You're going to give the Torah to a human being? Keep the Torah. We're spiritual creatures. We should get the Torah. And Hashem said to Moshe, no, answer them. And Moshe did. And he answered them so well that the Malachim were so convinced, they're like, wow, not only should you get the Torah, they gave him presents. The second very famous midrash is that before Hashem gave us the Torah, he went around to all the nations of the world asking them if they wanted the Torah. And of course, as we know, the midrash, they all said no. And that gave us the permission, the balabatishkeit, to have all the possessions, all the money of the world. Because it's sort of like, well, you were supposed to take this responsibility. You didn't. So if the Jews are, you owe them, they have this like lien on you that they can take all your possessions. All your possessions truly should go to the Jews. Another very famous midrash. But if you look at all these midrashim, the Rebbe says, what's going on? Why would there even be a thought that malachim should get the Torah? It's for us. And why should we go around to every nation to ask them, obviously asking their mazel, their spiritual energy, but asking them, do you want my Torah? I mean, we know the answer is no. Yeah, but this way we got their money. Hashem doesn't play jokes. Hashem doesn't play tricks. Hashem's straight. Hashem's MS. What's the MS? What's the truth? And Hashem asking the Goyim, when of course the Torah is not for the Goyim, and of course he doesn't want to give some, and of course they're going to say no. So 2 midrashim that we might not have linked in our brain, but really have a very similar common theme, and we're questioning both. To understand this, we went to another concept from Yaakov's dream, right? Famous dream of Yaakov. when he was on that one night sleeping on Har Moriah, where he sees the ladder, its base is in the ground, and the top of the ladder extends all the way to the heavens. And he sees the angels going up and down on the ladder. And there's two explanations. One explanation is that ladder is the ladder of tefillah. The rungs of the ladder are the rungs of prayer. Other explanation is that ladder is Yaakov. Yaakov himself is the ladder, and the angels are climbing up and down on Yaakov. Of course, Yaakov represents the Jew. So then the Rebbe said, well, the angels are climbing up and down on Yaakov. The angels are climbing on the Jew. What's going on? What's the difference between angels and Jews? Between angels and neshamas? And the Rebbe said there's a huge difference, because a neshama is enrooted in atzmos. Every one of us, our power is from God's essence and being, atzmos. And since it's from atzmos, as the neshamos descend to Atzilus or Bria, Yetzirah, Asir, to come down to this physical world, the physical body, atzmos is still atzmos. So same existence, but that's because we come from atzmos. But malachim don't come from atzmos; they come from Atzilus, and they're creations of Atzilus. Like everything else in this world, all starts off in Atzilus, and then they descend. And each time as they descend, there's a dramatic change and constriction on the energy to such a degree that when the angels descend from Atzilus to the next spiritual world of Bria, it's like, we call it hischatshus. They look like totally new creatures. And then if they descend further from Bria to Yetzirah, again, hischatshus, they look totally new. So as the angels descend, they keep changing. They keep looking different because the angels aren't from atzmos. They're not the essence thing. So each new reality shifts them to such a degree that, like, wow, there's a new creation. And the neshamas are rooted in God's essence and being. We never change it. And then the Rebbe compared this to engraved letters, like the luchos, the tablets, and written letters, even letters with Sefer Torah, ink on parchment. And of course, as explained in many, many places, Chassidus and quite a number of Shavuos Maimarim, ink on parchment, even though now it's one thing, it's really not in essence one thing. Really, the ink is covering over the parchment. Really, if you scraped off the ink would fall away. You wouldn't have the ink anymore, you'd have the parchment. Because the ink is something superimposed. The fabric of the letters is not the thing itself, the parchment. It's something you're putting on the parchment and you're covering over the parchment, and you could scrape it off the parchment, which is not so engraved letters. Because in engraved letters, what's the fabric? What's the material of the letters? The stone itself. So what did you add to the stone? You didn't. You carved it away, actually. And therefore, there's nothing you could ever do to take away those letters unless you just smash the entire stone. So the malachim and all the rest of creation are like written letters. Written, you can scrape them off. They're covering over the thing itself. Neshamas, us, we're the tablets. We're from the matter of the tablets itself, meaning the neshamas are enrooted in Hashem's essence and being in atzmos. This is Torah. These are the mitzvahs. So obviously Torah is ours because Torah, the commandments, and the neshamos, the souls of the Jews, all share this commonality. They're all enrooted in Hashem's essence and being. And that's why we uniquely are called mahalchim. We move, we go, hopefully up. We could also fall down. But we're moving because we have an innate energy. We're a being, as versus angels, that they're called omdim. They're stationary. But remember the dream. The angels are going up and down on Yaakov, on the Jew. Which means when we are doing our service right, there's a relationship between us and the angels. We like help them and they help us. And how we help them is we make them movers. They're moving. And we see this also in the second classical understanding of this ladder, which is that it's the ladder of prayer. We start off the lowest rung, Maida'ani, the brachos, Haida'a, acknowledgement of Hashem. And then we ascend the rungs of the ladder. The highest rung is Shema. Because Shema is the time of connection. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Echad. It's the connection of us to God. Shema Yisrael, hear Yisrael, the Jew, the neshama. Shema Yisrael, the climax of prayer, is the work of the souls. But before that, we have the brachos of Shema. We have two brachos, not like one-line brachos, but paragraph brachos, a longer one that ends with Yotzer HaMa'oros, creates luminaries, and a shorter one that ends with Habocher B'Am Yisrael Ba'ahava, who chooses his nation, the Jewish people, with love. So when we're looking at the brachos of Shema, if you opened up your siddur, and if you looked at the brachos of Shema, what are those brachos talking about? They're talking about the angels. That's where we know they say Kadosh, 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 and Baruch Kavod, and we're describing them. Fanim, Chayas HaKodesh. Before that, we were talking about the angels. Right. So the brachos leading up to Shema, that's angel matter. And then we send to Shema, that's soul matter. Now, when we say those brachos, angel matter, refining the angel, so to speak, we have a bit of an angel inside of us. We actually have two angels inside of us. We have our evil inclination, which is an angel, but we also have our animal soul, which is very much rooted in the energy of the angels, because angels are God's holy animals. And the animal soul is another dimension of God's animals. So as an animal of God inside of me, animal soul, it's enrooted in the same matter as the angels. So when I'm saying the brachos of Shema and I'm focusing and concentrating, like be nice, right? Focus and concentrate, we can really refine that animal soul. But we're not talking about the godly soul, because the godly soul is not angel matter. And then when we ascend even higher to the highest rung and we say the Shema, then we're working on the godly soul. So that was really what we were up to until now. We're continuing. The Rebbe now is going to focus on this idea of pleasure and how that impacts our service. So if you remember, we actually said this in the very, very end of what we were discussing. We said this pasuk, "Achalti ya'iri im divshi." I ate my honeycomb with my honey. And we said that honey is Kriya Shema, and that honeycomb is the brachas of Kriya Shema. And the honey is a lot sweeter than the honeycomb, because the honey is work of the neshama, the soul, and the honeycomb is the work of the angels of the animal soul. So now we want to focus on this pasuk. We really want to focus on the idea of honey, because honey is symbolic of pleasure, right? We speak of Eretz Yisrael as a land flowing with milk and honey. We don't say with vaflim and biskvitim. We don't say with chocolate. We don't say with sugar. We say with honey. So traditionally, if we want to express absolute sweetness, it's honey. So what does sweetness give us? I mean, we all know, I assume we all like to eat good tasting food. So sweetness gives us pleasure. Tainu. Now you could say pleasure. I'm a spiritual person. I'm learning a Maimer Hasidic discourse. What am I talking about pleasure for? But pleasure is a very godly tool. Pleasure is our highest faculty. We have our action, and higher than that we have our emotions, and higher than that we have our intellect, and higher than that we have our will, and higher than that, the highest faculty we have is pleasure. Again, we could use pleasure not for God, but when we're using the faculty of pleasure for God, it's the highest level. And this pleasure, this dvash, this honey, this pleasure is what causes that the souls are those walkers. Remember we said, well, the neshamos, the souls, they're mahalchim. They move, they go, they ascend. And the angels, they're stationary, they're omdim. Unless we pick up the angel and then the angel can crawl on our ladder, so to speak. What makes us movers, walkers, ascenders? This pleasure. The pleasure is what moves us to come higher and higher to God, to go ultimately to the love, as we say in Shema, right? We said the neshama's work is the work of Shema, to serve Hashem b'chol ma'odecha, limitlessly. Everything I have and more than I have and anything I have and just limitless, anything Eibishter, anything God. It's all about you. And then we can go even higher than that. And the ultimate love, which is called ahava b'sa'anugim, a love which is a pleasure that the souls in this world are feeling like the pleasure the souls feel in the next world. That's the work of the souls. That's the work of pleasure. That's the work of Shema. B'chol modecha, serve God limitlessly, right? We have to Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, u'b'chol me'odecha. That's the work of Shema. That's the work of the souls. Notice we don't say b'chol modecha in the brachos of Shema, because we said the brachos of Shema, the blessings before Shema, those two long brachos, Yotzer HaMa'oros and Habachar Ma'asra Ba'ahava, those two brachos talking about the work of the angels, we don't say B'chol Modecha. Angels aren't movers. Angels are stationary. So angels are stuck unless we impact them and we help them ascend. But the neshama moves. And that's why by the neshama we say Shema Yisrael, the neshama, listen. What does Shema mean? Shema means understand. I mean, Shema means listen, but it means listening in a way of understanding, of comprehension. Shema Yisrael, listen, understand, comprehend. Like you say, listen up. I could mean hear me. I could mean understand me. So listen, Yisrael, understand, neshama, understand and move and grow. Grow in your love for Hashem until you come, and then higher b'chol nafshecha, and then higher b'chol ma'odecha, serving Hashem limitlessly. And how do we do that? When we really feel the joy, when we feel the honey, when it's sweet. There's a pasuk that says, Aim habanim smecha. The mother of the children rejoices, right? We probably all know that pasuk. Aim habanim smecha. But we probably never thought about it much. This mimer thinks about it. This mimer says, what's the mother? Mother is the contemplation that creates the emotions. In other words, and this, of course, goes back to Tanya, that you have the intellect of your soul and you have the emotions of your soul. The intellect, the three powers of intellect, Chachma, Bina, Das, and the emotions, the seven emotions, Chesed, Gevur, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yisod, Malch. What's the relationship between them? The intellect are called the mothers, Imais. They're the mothers. Why are they called mother? Because a mother gives birth. Well, what's my intellect giving birth to? The Midas. Loving Hashem and fearing Hashem. Those are the children of the intellect. Because when I use my soul powers, and with my soul powers, use my mind to think, to contemplate, Shema Yisrael, use my soul to hear, to understand, to listen, to grow in my grasp of Hashem, this will be the mother that's going to create the child, which is the emotions. And that's the point. In other words, Judaism is not cerebral. It's not to be really brainy people. Yes, Jews are very smart. We're all very smart. But the goal is not to have a big brain. It's to serve Hashem. It's to be a servant of God, an Oved Hashem. How do I become a servant of God? When my mind elicits my feelings and I feel this love for Hashem and I feel this awe for Hashem, I'm on. I'm moving. I'm serving Hashem any way I can. I love Hashem. I want Hashem. I want to give to Hashem. I serve Hashem to give to Hashem. I want to be with Hashem. I serve Hashem because then me and Hashem are one. And I have this awe and this fear of losing that relationship. And God forbid, doing something that would harm Hashem and feed his enemy, the forces of evil, put God under the control of his energy as the holy forces that God gave me now are feeding evil. So the more I have emotion, the more I'm an inspired, activated, happening, moving quickly, serving, doing whatever I can for God. So intellect is the mother of emotion, and I want the emotions to lead to a life of service. So therefore, aim habanim smecha. The mother of the children is joyous. The mother is the intellect, Shema Yisrael. Listen, think, understand, get it. Yisrael, souls, Jews. Listen up to God, understand God, and then you have the banim. And then you give birth to the children. Then you give birth to the emotions. And that's what we need, because even if we think we're intellectual people, nobody really changes because of what their mind is telling them. You change because of what your heart's telling you, right? That's why someone could be a hypocrite. They could know it all and not live like that at all. We know, we can know, and we can know, and we can know. But what does that have to do with anything? Because when it's just in the brain, it doesn't translate to my body. But if it's in the heart, what the heart is feeling spreads to my entire body. And then I am serving God. Then I'm an Oved Hashem. Now, let's go back to that pasuk. It's a 3-word pasuk, right? We keep saying it. Aim habanim semecha. The mother of the children rejoice. So we know the mother. That's the intellect. We know the banim. We know the children. That's the emotion. How do you get from intellect to emotion? How does intellect become a mother? Smecha. Because she's happy. Because she's joyous. This should not give any mother a guilt trip. But you need to be joyous. You need to have a pleasure in your understanding, and then you'll have a child. And then you'll feel the emotions. So what the Rebbe is saying is, if we learn and think and contemplate and meditate, and we don't feel any joy in it, we're not going to produce the child. No emotion will happen, even though we're getting it completely and we are so brilliant and knowledgeable. But if we are trying, we're using our mind to understand Hashem, and we're happy. We're excited that we can understand Hashem. We're excited that we can learn. We're excited that little me is grasping Hashem a little bit more, a little bit more. This is so cool. This is so unbelievable. He's a creator. I'm creation, and I'm understanding him. Wow. When I'm happy in the mother role, in understanding Hashem, then a child is born. Im habanim smecha. When is this a real mother that has real children, that has emotions? When you're happy. So this is an amazing thing. And obviously, it happens to us in real life. Like, this happens in real time. We could be learning and thinking and contemplating and meditating, and nothing happens. Hopefully, sometimes we learn and think and contemplate and meditate, and something does happen, and we have the feeling. So why didn't it happen? We learned. We came to this class. We're learning a mimer. It's a mimer. Shouldn't I walk away feeling more love for Hashem, more awe of Hashem? Isn't that what's supposed to happen when my mind is grasping these deep Hasidic concepts? It's supposed to happen. Yes, that's exactly what's supposed to happen. But the Rebbe is saying you have to do it with joy. When you're happy, joy means like you're happy. You're happy. When you're happy with it, when you're excited about it, then the intellect produces the emotions. And if you're detached, you're doing it. And it's just a check on your chart, or it's just an intellectual exercise, which is even worse. Nothing's coming from that. No mother here, because no smecha here. Aim habanim, smecha. If you're joyous, then you're a mother to the child of emotion. If there's no smecha, then you're no mother. It's very powerful what the Rebbe is saying here, because it's very practical and very real. Meaning, when we're talking about spiritual dimensions, angels traveling on our back, okay, that's interesting. When the Rebbe is saying, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's not going to affect you. Ouch. That's talking about me. That's talking about my reality. That's talking about what I am and I'm not doing correctly in my service of Hashem. And the Rebbe is saying, do you get how important it is? Imagine someone's really investing time in understanding Hashem. It doesn't go anywhere. No child is produced. No emotions. That person's taking the same amount of time, or maybe even less, with the same amount of brain power, or maybe even less. But they're happy to do it. This one's going to be a mother. This one's going to have a child. There's going to be a feeling for Hashem from this. That is because of the faculty of pleasure. And the Rebbe says we could see this in many dimensions. Like, let's talk about if a person is working on himself to remove from himself pleasure in inappropriate things, right? What we're saying is pleasure makes things happen. Pleasure makes you a mother. Pleasure produces something. So if a person worked on himself to be detached from Gashmias, he could taste food, but he doesn't really care. It's not really, his big thing anymore, though maybe it used to be. Or whatever else, jewelry. It's nice, but whatever. It's not really jewelry or flowers or whatever. New clothing, granite countertops, a car, whatever. Physicality. If you work on yourself, that you're not so into it, that you don't care so much, what could happen? You could think about it, be all involved in something, and it doesn't affect you at all. There's no emotion being produced. In this case, that's a very good thing that there's no emotion being produced, because this would be an emotion for a wrong thing, right? In other words, if everyone is talking about their favorite cheesecake recipe, Shavuos is coming up, and their favorite blintzes and chocolate, and you worked on yourself to not care about these things, the conversation is going on, and yeah, you could pull out your cheesecake recipe, and you could this, and you could that, and you could spend an hour discussing it, and it's irrelevant. Like, it doesn't affect you at all, because you don't have the dvash, you don't have the honey, you don't have the pleasure. That's very positive. Or, unfortunately, in a not as positive or not positive at all fashion, if someone is distant from Hashem, but for some reason, this is a very great lecturer, he loves the class, it's so intellectually stimulating, and he learns, and he's intellectually stimulated, and he has no feeling for Hashem at all. Because you're detached, because there's no honey, because there's no pleasure. So it's really important, the Rebbe is saying, not just to be doing what Hashem wants, but to be doing it with pleasure, to enjoy serving Hashem. And the more we enjoy serving Hashem, the more we enjoy learning, the more we enjoy understanding Hashem, the more what's supposed to happen happens. We're not just doing the act, getting the check, stimulating our mind. We're deepening and deepening the expression of our love and awe of Hashem. And that's the point. Because the more I have that love and awe, the more I'm an empowered, inspired servant of Hashem, which is the point. So we will stop here. And if we could just remember this, I think it's so practical. Maybe I think it's so practical because I'm not always there, but I think it's so practical to say, wait, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. Stop, breathe, enjoy it. Enjoy it. Literally enjoy it. Then we bring in the honey factor. Then we bring in the pleasure. Then aim habanim smecha. What I'm doing creates the child. There is an emotional connection to Hashem because I'm doing it with joy. All right, we will stop at this point. Thank you so much for joining. There would not have been a class if there weren't you. So thank you for making the class happen. Have a good Shabbos.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.